this is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com, and you're listening to my new video, Libertarianism 101. We're basically going to do a high-level overview of what libertarianism is, why it's good, and what do people criticize it with. So again, we're going to be covering first the philosophical basics, sort of what is libertarianism, what are the basic values, ideas that make a libertarian, or sort of the things that you can kind of realize that a libertarian kind of leans towards. The practical benefits, like if there was a more libertarian world, what would you expect that's good out of that? And common criticisms. So people who aren't libertarian, they may say, hey, a libertarian world would be this, and that's a problem. And sort of why isn't it a problem? We'll talk about that all in this video. Now this is high level. So if you want to go more in detail, more specific situations, I'm going to point you to a website at the very end where you can find a lot more videos, references to books you should read, and a lot of other cool resources if you want to delve deeper into the whole sort of libertarianism idea and its application. But hopefully after this video, you'll better understand what libertarianism is. And if you're not a libertarian, understand better where us libertarians are coming from. Because one of the best ways for us to have a more peaceful world, a world of better discourse, is for us to sincerely try to understand each other on our terms. So you understand me the way I see myself, and I'll try to understand you the way you see yourself. So that way we can have a better discussion to get us to consensus. So first let's talk about the philosophy and principles. So again, these are like the ideas, the kind of values that a libertarian has and why they have these values. So generally libertarianism starts with the idea of self-ownership, the idea that we own ourselves, that we own our life, body, and property. Because if I don't own my life, then somebody else may. So we rather believe, or I can't think of a better way to think than I own myself, because I don't want anyone else to own myself. So if I own myself, I own my body. And if that's the case, nobody else has the right or the legitimate right to hurt my body or property for no reason. That's non-aggression, the idea that I can't go and hurt someone else. Okay, I can't, I just can't hurt them. I can't just walk up to somebody and punch them. That's an initiation of aggression. Now, if someone were to come and throw a punch at me, I have the ability to defend myself, but that's not an initiation of force. So the whole non-aggression principle is about initiation. I'm not supposed to be going around just hurting people. I can defend myself if I'm threatened, if my life, my body, my property is threatened, but I'm not to initiate aggression. There's no legitimate reason to do so. So if that's the case, we start kind of getting the basis for property rights. Because if I own myself, so if we all own ourselves, our lives and bodies, we kind of know that that's ours. But there's all this other physical stuff in the world, and there's not enough physical stuff for everybody. Okay, so how do we figure out what's whose and whose is what's? The way we do that is through property rights. So by basic idea of sort of mixing labor with land or other goods and whatnot, making property. So for example, if there was like a block in the middle of the room that was nobody's, if I get to it first and do something physical with it, something that kind of mark it that it's mine. Not because some sort of magic happened, but because there's literally nobody else to make a claim that they owned it before me, because no one else has ever touched it or done anything with it before. So that's mine. Okay, and that doesn't just mean that I get the benefits of that thing. I also have the liabilities of that thing, and that's one of the more important parts of property rights. It just doesn't tell us who gets the benefit from what or who gets the control of what, but when something goes wrong and there's liabilities issues and we're trying to resolve conflicts, it tells us who's responsible. Okay, and that's the beauty of property rights. We know who is responsible for doing what, because what's yours is your responsibility. But here's the thing. The property that we have, the property we attain, is not necessarily always the property that we want. So by having the freedom to exchange property of all types, goods and services, we're able to better attain the things that we want and make the world a better place, because we're all getting things that we want that we can do more stuff with. That's free exchange. Okay? Allowing goods to move around. Individualism, the idea that we all see each other not as any kind of bucket, so not in collectives, because the minute you start putting people solely in a bucket by any kind of strata, by their political ideas, by their race, by their gender, by their sexuality, by any kind of stratification you can think of, by their wealth, by their religious beliefs. What happens, you start having wars, you start having violence, you start having hate, you start shutting down conversation because people won't talk to each other because they see themselves in a bucket that they think that they're supposed to hate. Or they'll blindly follow someone because they think they're in a bucket that they're supposed to love. And this causes all sorts of conflict in the world that's not needed. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean we don't identify as things. I have all sorts of things that I identify as, but none of them are me. I am a sum of many things. And when we start approaching each other and treating each other as the sum of those things, meaning we have to explore and get to know each other, ideas get exchanged, and it's much easier to attain peace because we're listening to each other. And a libertarian world is very built on that idea of individualism, of looking at each other as those pieces instead of rushing to hate or rushing to love, getting to know each other and going from there. Voluntarism, because when people do things on a voluntary basis, they're better off, because if you enter an arrangement voluntarily, you are going to benefit from it. If you're in a relationship with somebody, there's always the potential that they walk out. So in that case, since you're both there voluntarily, you both constantly seek to provide value for each other. And that's the beauty of voluntarism. When things are voluntary, we're constantly trying to make our arrangement with each other better because we want to keep each other there. And the minute that we don't, we'll find somebody who will. And that's a beautiful thing because it constantly puts pressure on everybody to be the best that they can be. So if you go to your baker and they start slacking on muffins, you might go to another baker. And that make sure that the baker is always trying to be the best baker they can be. And you be the best customer you can be. Okay, voluntarism. Decentralization. Now, because things are voluntary, you end up having a much more decentralization because we don't all want the same thing. Okay, that baker may be trying to be the best baker that he wants to be, but he's not going to be able to bake enough for every taste of every value of everyone. So you're going to end up having lots of different bakers. It's going to be a decentralized world of baking provision. And that's a beautiful thing because that means there's going to be more variety for more people, and has other benefits such as diversification of producers and decentralized. But now, not everything is necessarily always going to be decentralized, but when people have a choice to have the ability to choose something else, you're often going to have much more than one option, which means you're going to have a much more decentralized provision of goods and services and other things, and that has all sorts of benefits. And speaking of benefits, what are the benefits of a libertarian world? Well, things like diversification. Okay, so a lot of people talk about things like universal healthcare, about having governments provide healthcare. Thing is, if the government provides everyone's healthcare, maybe everyone has healthcare, but if something happens to the government goes through a crisis, the government fails, then nobody has healthcare. So you have all your eggs in one basket. It's like putting all your money in one stock. Hey, if it's the best stock out there, then you'll be fine and you're going to make a lot of money. But if it's the worst stock, then you've lost all your money. And that's the problem with trying to ask one institution to do everything for everyone. You want to have everything diversified, and that's the beauty of the voluntarism and the decentralization, because you'll have lots of providers, lots of people. So if one institution fails, if you have lots of healthcare companies and one fails, some people may no longer be able to get healthcare, but not everyone's going to suddenly stop getting healthcare. Focused governance. So again, the more you ask government to do, or any institution to do, the more confused it gets. Okay, it's like because the priorities you have in one area aren't always synergistic, and oftentimes in conflict with your priorities in another area. And you only have so many resources, you only have so much time to think through every problem. So in that case, the more you ask an institution to do, the less it's going to end up doing well, because it's trying to do everything for everyone and has no ability to really hold any of those things accountable. Okay, so imagine the leaders of any organization, how much time do they really have to go through every report, every number, and everything that a large corporation does or that a large government does? It's just impossible to oversee all that and give it proper governance. So that world of decentralization, that more decentralized world that a libertarian brings more focused governance, because to survive, you need to make sure that people choose you, and to choose you, you got to do your job well. So you're going to focus on what you do best instead of trying to focus on too much. Knowledge discovery, since everybody can kind of try to do things, try to be be a better baker, try to be a better programmer, try to be a better anything, people are constantly going to try, succeed, and fail. And when people succeed, they're going to be like, okay, let's do more of this. And when they fail, they're going to be like, let's not do that again. And the more people you have doing all these successes and failures, the quicker you discover the best way to do things. Because at the end of the day, a business, a charity, a community organization is really just a group of people cooperating with each other. They may be competing with another group of people cooperating, but the one who's found the better way to cooperate is going to win out. And quickly we discover the best ways to cooperate with each other, which benefits everybody as we learn better ways to do business, to do charity, to do community, everything, because we have more people trying different things. Efficiency, because everyone's trying to do things better. We're constantly discovering through trial and error the best way to do things, which means not only are we providing more value, but we're also using less resources to do so. We're discovering how to do things with less. Okay, and especially when you have a population that's growing, you need that efficiency in order to make sure that those resources can stretch further and further and further for more and more people. So a more libertarian, a more free world, a more hands-off, laissez-faire world brings you all these things. But of course, like anything, it comes with its criticisms, such as exploitation. So this is when people say that a business owner keeps a large share of the profits, and this is exploitative of its labor. This is a harder thing to sort of push back against. One of the best explanations of sort of the problems with this whole idea of exploitation is Eugen von Bauwerks, an economist from a long time ago. He wrote a lot about sort of the idea of time and interest and the entrepreneur. I highly recommend going to look into what he wrote. It really makes a good economic case for the entrepreneur and why profits get distributed the way they do. When you think about like when people get their money and how long they have to wait before they get their money. So like the employee tends to get their money up front before anything is sold, while the entrepreneur, the capitalist, has to wait to sort of, we produce the good, everyone's already been paid, then we got to see if we can sell it in the market, and there's this whole period of time that goes before they actually make the money off that thing, and that's kind of coordinates with interest. That's sort of more complicated, but basically what it comes down to is oftentimes we look at exploitation, or people who look at things as exploitation are just imagining sort of a best case scenario, saying, well, if the best case alternative was available, well, you're offering them this really bad choice. But that's not real world. Oftentimes the choice that they make, the choice that they have in this relationship is maybe oftentimes the best choice available for all parties. And to sit there and say, hey, you can't have this arrangement with each other, just means that you're only going to leave them with the bad option. And you may feel good that you prevented this option you don't like, but you've just forced them to take on worse options, and that's not necessarily a better world. Inefficiency. People will criticize sort of people being able to choose. They're like, well, if everybody just had to go to the same baker, we wouldn't need so much flour, and you'd have much more efficient of all the resources the baker use. And since there's only one baker, he doesn't have to spend all this money on marketing, because everyone knows there's just one baker, and you just go to that one baker. And they'll make this claim that basically free markets are inefficient because you have so many people doing the same thing. When you only have one person doing the same thing, they may not have to spend as much on marketing, but marketing is a good expense. Why? Because in the expense of marketing, you're learning how to communicate value better. And when you learn, because you have to convince people to choose you over your competition. So by trying to figure out ways to tell people the value in what you do, you're also teaching people and helping convince people to use that product class to begin with. And competition among providers, especially in a new product, helps improve sort of adoption of new technologies that make life more better, the world more efficient, all sorts of things. And that's good. And then also, by learning to communicate with each other better, we are less likely to have conflict. So having all this money sort of geared towards communication is a good thing. And two, again, there's all the normal effects of monopoly. When you have a monopoly, yes, you may have scale on your side, but there's basically that one monopoly will have so much pricing power that they can take advantage of it, and hold people basically hostage with that pricing power. And two, their quality will quickly go down. Okay, and basically a lot of those theoretical benefits will happen there because you don't have the same accountability that having competition puts on you. Power asymmetry. The fact that there'll be winners and losers in markets. That some people will win in the market, some people will lose in the market, and those who sort of win will become more powerful because they may have more influence, more wealth, etc. You have these power asymmetries, okay? And this sort of concerns people that, oh, these people are so powerful. And there's always power asymmetries. That's not something that's going to happen just in a free world. You can take a look at any society of any type, and there's people who are more powerful, whether they're powerful because they're just politically in the right group, because they just have the right resources. There's always people who have more power. That's not something that's unique. If anything, it's diminished within free markets because people, since people can choose alternatives, and someone abuses their power, they can choose to deal with other people and little by little chip away at their power. While when you have situations where you only have a few institutions who provide stuff, you don't have those alternatives. So yeah, I can see situations where there's power asymmetry, meaning people who have maybe a little bit too much power in the realm of being able to negotiate or discuss things, but I see that as generally greater in other ways of the world working. Inequality. Now, inequality is a loaded term, okay? So is it inequality of wealth, inequality of income, inequality of all sorts of different things? And the thing is that inequality in itself just isn't automatically bad. It depends why the inequality happened. So basically, if someone gets paid more because they're a programmer, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If there's like a huge premium to being a programmer when there's not enough programmers in the world, and it takes a lot of time to develop those skills and a lot of effort, well, that premium kind of helps incentivize people to take on that time, that effort, that they're not taking in income yet. And vice versa, if someone's being paid sort of a discount, basically they're being paid very little for something, maybe there's just too many people doing that, and this helps disincentivize people from doing that. Okay, so that way we better, invest our time and resources to things that'll benefit everybody. Okay, so those kind of inequalities are good, but there are inequalities that are bad. Okay, but oftentimes this is not because the market's free, but because the market's not free. So when you look at things like licensing, that make it harder to switch industries. So then what happens is that you have more people. So basically, people who are in an industry that pays well stays the same because it's really hard for people from outside who are making less money, who would like to participate in the higher paying industry, from getting in. And this creates sort of an inequality or a differential of incomes that's not because of natural market forces, but because you've erected artificial barriers to getting in. Same thing when you put regulations and taxes on business. You make it more expensive to start a business, so you're putting a cost on that opportunity, which means people who can't afford those costs are less likely to take advantage of those opportunities, creating an overabundance of opportunities for those who can afford those taxes and those regulations. Then that creates a disparity. But this is not because of free market. This is because of regulation, taxes, licensing that create these differentials. So, to sum it up, free people don't lack problems and challenges. They just have the freedom to solve them. So at the end of the day, a free world isn't perfect. A libertarian world isn't perfect. People are going to have struggles. They're going to have challenges. They're going to have their bad days. They're going to have their good days. But whatever days you have, at least you're free to do something about it. And that's a lot. There's a lot to be said for that. So if you want to learn more about libertarianism, I recommend going over to libertarian101.com, learn more. And my name is Alex Merced. Go look me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, on your favorite social network. And thank you guys very much. And don't forget to sign up for my newsletter over there at alexmerced.com.